I was on my couch the other night just trying to find a good recipe. I opened Instagram, hoping for some of those satisfying top-down cooking videos. For a few minutes, that's exactly what I got. But then the algorithm decided I'd had enough calm for one evening. A video popped up about traditional values. I swiped past. Then another slightly more aggressive one. Before I knew it, what started as a search for pasta sauce had morphed into a full-blown tunnel of outrage content. My feed was suddenly an endless stream of angry men yelling into their car cameras and clips taken deliberately out of context to prove some grand, cynical point. And I could feel it changing me. My shoulders tensed up, my jaw was tight. I went from relaxed to agitated in about 90 seconds. I was mentally preparing arguments against people I'd never meet. That feeling of being dragged from a state of passive interest into a state of high alert, ready for a fight, made me think. When we spend our days being shoved through these digital outrage tunnels, what happens to the part of our brain that's meant for quiet observation? What happens to the part that's supposed to just wonder why the curtains might be blue? Okay, let's unpack this. That feeling, that rapid shift from relaxed to agitated, from curious to combat ready, it's a striking example of how our digital world is reshaping our minds. For our deep dive today, we're exploring the profound, sometimes unsettling ways modern media and technology are impacting our cognitive abilities, our emotional well-being, and even, well, our societal fabric. We've unearthed some truly fascinating insights that shed light on the very mechanisms at play, from how algorithms are designed to keep us hooked, to what happens inside our brains when we're constantly online, and even how artificial intelligence is fitting into this incredibly complex picture.
What's truly fascinating here is that we're not just talking about superficial changes like, how much time you spend online. We're talking fundamental, deep shifts in how we think, how we remember, and how we interact with the world around us. This deep dive will pull back the curtain on how deliberate design choices in our digital environments, alongside a pervasive culture of convenience, might be inadvertently diminishing our capacity for deep thought, critical reasoning, and even genuine human connection. We're going to connect these seemingly disparate dots, showing the why behind these impacts and what they truly mean for all of us as individuals and as a society. It's about understanding the subtle yet powerful forces shaping our digital lives.
Let's jump right into this deep dive then, starting with a story that might sound uncomfortably familiar to some of you listening. Imagine a young woman we'll call Elena, living in a vibrant, bustling city like Barcelona. 5 years ago, Elena's digital life was this incredible, winding journey of discovery. She absolutely loved vintage photography and would spend hours just jumping from one link to another, first finding obscure French photographers from the 60s, then, almost by accident, stumbling upon Japanese ukiyo-e woodblock prints that had subtly influenced them centuries earlier. Her mind was, a vibrant tapestry woven from these seemingly disparate threads, a testament to true, unguided exploration.
Right, that kind of serendipitous discovery that used to feel so common online.
Exactly. But fast forward to today, Elena opens her phone and her feed is different. It's placid, almost predictable. The algorithm, in its infinite wisdom, has learned she likes vintage aesthetics. So now it shows her an endless loop of the same sepia-toned filters, the same fashion influencers posing in thrift store finds. She doesn't explore anymore, she just scrolls. I actually saw a comment she might have written on a forum and it really stuck with me. I feel like my creative well has run dry. The internet used to be an ocean, now it's a curated pond, and I feel like I'm just swimming in circles.
Wow, a curated pond. That's a really evocative way to put it.
Isn't it? And as someone who spends a significant part of my life online, Elena's story hits so close to home. It highlights a chilling reality we rarely discuss. These platforms, which are designed so ingeniously for engagement, may actually be systematically engineering curiosity right out of us. The algorithm isn't malicious, of course, it's just incredibly efficient. It identifies what gives us that quick dopamine hit, that little burst of pleasure, and then, quite simply, gives us more and more of it. The unintended consequence of this efficiency is the creation of a cognitive cage, a comfortable but ultimately sterile environment where the impulse to ask, what else is out there, what haven't I seen, slowly withers. It feels like we're trading the sheer joy of the hunt, the thrill of stumbling upon something new and unexpected, for the comfort of the already found.
It's the path of least resistance, cognitively speaking.
Precisely. Elena's experience points directly to a core issue we need to tackle first: how social media is fundamentally designed to capture and hold our attention almost at any cost.
You've hit on a critical point. That feeling Elena describes of the ocean shrinking to a pond is a direct symptom of the specific mechanisms built into these platforms. We often just accept them as part of the digital landscape, but they are profoundly reshaping our minds. So let's talk about those specific mechanisms within these platforms that lead to this diminishment of curiosity and shift towards what we call superficial engagement.
Okay, where do we start?
Well, one of the most pervasive influences at play is what's known as the attention economy, and its insidious cousin, fragmented focus. Think about it. Social media platforms are explicitly engineered down to every pixel and notification to keep us glued to our screens. Features like frequent notifications, those little red bubbles, constant updates, and algorithm-driven content all contribute to this. Our focus, our precious finite attention, has become a valuable commodity that these platforms are constantly vying for. This relentless stream of stimulation, that constant ping, the endless new content encourages fragmented attention. What that means for our minds is that we're perpetually, unconsciously shifting between tasks and pieces of information. It's like trying to watch 10 TV shows at once, flipping channels every few seconds, but never truly absorbing any one story.
So it's essentially a constant battle for our eyeballs and our attention, and our brains are the prize. But what's the long-term cost of that constant battle? Not just for the platforms, but for us.
Exactly. And the cost is significant. Neuroimaging studies, for instance, have shown how this overstimulation consistently activates the brain's reward pathways, specifically a part called the ventral striatum. Think of it as your brain's reward junkie center, constantly nudging you towards the next quick hit, whether it's a new notification, another scroll, or a fleeting burst of digital validation. This area prioritizes instant gratification, often at the direct expense of our ability to maintain deep, sustained focus on any one thing. That's why you might open an app to do one thing and suddenly find yourself lost in a completely different stream of content 20 minutes later.
Right, the dreaded scroll hole.
Precisely. The profound insight here is that these platforms aren't just distracting us. They're actively rewiring our brains to prefer that instant gratification over deep, sustained thought, making focused attention an uphill battle. This constant task switching required by multitasking on these platforms significantly diminishes our cognitive efficiency and overall productivity. Our brains simply aren't built for that rapid, continuous juggling act, and shrunk to force it leads to mental exhaustion.
Okay, so attention is one major casualty. What else? You mentioned memory earlier.
Yes, beyond just attention, this digital environment profoundly impacts our memory. We're seeing a phenomenon often referred to as the Google effect, or digital amnesia. This is where we increasingly rely on easily accessible online information rather than actively retaining knowledge ourselves. Why remember something when you can just look it up instantly, right? Social media exacerbates this by encouraging us to document and share experiences almost instantaneously, sometimes at the cost of fully immersing ourselves in them. When you're busy framing the perfect shot or crafting a witty caption, you're not always living in the moment, which can literally disrupt your natural memory consolidation processes.
That's a really interesting point. It's like we're offloading our memories to the cloud, right? So what happens when we rely so heavily on external digital archives instead of our own minds? Does our actual memory get weaker?
It's precisely that feeling of offloading. The rapid influx of brief, fragmented updates, those quick posts, stories, and reels, puts an enormous strain on our working memory, making it harder to truly retain valuable information. You scroll past dozens, maybe hundreds, of discrete pieces of content in minutes. How much of that do you actually remember an hour later?
Honestly, very little usually. Bits and pieces maybe.
Exactly. Not much, typically. Many of us now unconsciously depend on our digital archives, our photos, our posts, our timelines, to recall past events, eroding our confidence in our natural memory recall. This fundamentally shifts our cognitive habits, making us less likely to even try to remember details without that digital reinforcement. Think about the pressure to create engaging content for your feed. It can often overshadow authentic experiences, diminishing the emotional depth and meaningfulness of our memories. And the ever-present fear of missing out, or FOMO, further fragments our attention, constantly pulling us away from the present moment to check for new updates, only adding to this relentless cognitive strain.
Okay, that's quite a picture. Attention scattered, memory potentially weakening, and then there's AI and algorithms shaping what we even see in the first place.
Now let's talk about the profound role of AI and algorithmic curation in diminishing our natural curiosity. As Elena's story so vividly illustrated, algorithms learn precisely what gives us that quick dopamine hit, and then, with remarkable efficiency, they serve us more and more of the same. This isn't about malicious intent, it's just efficiency, pure and simple. But it's this very efficiency that creates the curated pond you mentioned, rather than the boundless ocean of exploration the internet once promised. This highly targeted content delivery, while incredibly effective for engagement metrics keeping us scrolling and clicking, actually limits our exposure to diverse perspectives and reduces our inherent human need to actively seek out new, challenging information. We are fed what we like, or what we've already shown an interest in, not necessarily what broadens our understanding or pushes the boundaries of our assumptions.
That curated pond idea is really powerful. It makes me wonder if we're becoming less mentally athletic in a way, because we're not having to stretch ourselves to find new information or perspectives.
That's a million analogy, mentally athletic. And it ties into a broader, quite unsettling concern about AI's impact on our cognitive function, specifically highlighted in recent research on advanced AI assistants like ChatGPT. While these tools are incredibly convenient, making information and content generation lightning fast, they might be leading to what some researchers are calling cognitive debt. It's like taking out a mental loan. You get instant gratification now, but you're accruing interest in the form of diminished long-term cognitive skills. Studies are starting to show that when individuals rely heavily on large language model (LLM) tools for tasks like essay writing, their brains actually exhibit weaker, less distributed neural connectivity compared to those who don't use AI at all, or even those who use traditional search engines. This suggests a significant underengagement of the brain's own thinking processes.
Wow, really? So using AI to write could actually make our brains less active during the process.
That's what the early research suggests. Users of AI tools for writing tasks also report lower self-reported ownership of their essays and struggle more to accurately quote their own work, which points to a much shallower depth of processing. The sheer emphasis on speed and efficiency from AI-generated content can completely bypass the essential human process of analysis, interpretation, and articulation. Students, for example, might be tempted to skip reading full text in favor of AI summaries, leading to a very superficial understanding of complex subjects. This scenario creates a generation that is factually informed, perhaps, but intellectually passive, where the inherent thrill of discovery is replaced by the instant gratification of an answer. Ultimately, it can diminish creativity and originality, as machine-generated content, however sophisticated, inevitably overshadows the unique nuances of human emotion and imagination.
Okay, so algorithms narrow our view, and AI might make us cognitively lazy. What about the design itself? You mentioned dark patterns.
Yes. Finally, we need to discuss dark patterns, which are the very design elements of engagement. Beyond just algorithms, the actual visual and interactive elements of social media platforms utilize what we call dark patterns. These are deceptive user experience practices that are intentionally crafted to manipulate users into doing things they might not otherwise do, often benefiting the platform at the user's expense.
Like what? Give me an example.
A prime example, something you see on almost every major platform, is the infinite scroll. Whether it's on Facebook, X, or Instagram, it's designed to keep us endlessly consuming content without conscious awareness of how much time has passed or how much we've consumed. It cleverly exploits our tendency to keep engaging just because the content is there, constantly refreshing, leading to potentially unhealthy usage patterns. Think about it. There's no natural stopping point, no bottom to the page.
It's like a conveyor belt of content that never ends. So it's not just that we're choosing to keep scrolling, but the design is actively encouraging it, making it harder to disengage.
Precisely. Another classic dark pattern is manipulative notifications. These aren't always about genuinely relevant activity. Instead, they're often crafted to create urgency or, again, that powerful sense of FOMO, subtly pulling us back to the platform even when we've tried to put our phone down. You know, the ones someone you know just posted. These design choices, these dark patterns, are intentionally crafted to maximize user engagement, often at the direct expense of our well-being. They effectively push us towards that superficial engagement by making it harder for us to disengage, to pause, and to think deeply about what we're consuming.
And do these things affect everyone the same way, or are some people more vulnerable?
That's a crucial point. We need to acknowledge the differential impact of these effects. These impacts aren't uniform across all users. Different demographics experience them in unique ways. Teenagers, for instance, are particularly vulnerable. Their brains are still developing, making them more impressionable to social validation, those likes, comments, and shares, and the algorithmic reinforcement that comes with it. For them, algorithmic validation isn't just a fleeting hit. It's deeply tied to their developing sense of self-worth and how they perceive their place in the world. It actively shapes their identity. Contrast that with seasoned professionals who might know better, who understand the value of deep work, but still find their days chopped into tiny, unproductive chunks by constant email pings and team chat notifications.
Right, the endless interruptions.
They might spend half their day in what's called attention residue, constantly trying to regain focus after each interruption. The type of vulnerability changes depending on the user, but the fundamental impact on focus, well-being, and even productivity is universal across demographics. Studies consistently indicate that excessive screen time, particularly in young users, correlates with increased anxiety and decreased concentration, while older adults may face cognitive overload from the sheer saturation of information. While this picture might seem bleak, it's important to remember that the brain's neuroplasticity, its ability to adapt and change, offers a powerful source of hope. Strategies like digital detoxes, mindful social media use, and targeted education can all play a significant role in mitigating these negative effects and supporting overall cognitive health. Understanding these underlying mechanisms is the crucial first step.
Okay, so that's the impact on our individual minds, our curiosity, our attention spans. Let's shift gears now and turn to a different kind of story, one that really brings home the societal implications of this pervasive convenience culture. I heard a story about a family in a mid-sized American town, focusing on two brothers who used to be inseparable. Let's call them Mark and David. They grew up fixing bikes together, arguing good-naturedly about sports, and sharing those deeply personal inside jokes that only siblings understand. Their bond, their connection was built on a foundation of shared reality, shared experiences.
That's common ground.
Exactly. Over the past decade, however, something subtle yet profound began to happen. Their screens, those personalized windows to the digital world, started to pull that shared reality apart. Mark's feed, meticulously curated by his own clicks and engagement patterns, slowly became a constant stream of outrage about urban decay, liberal policies, and what he perceived as threats to traditional values. David's feed was the inverse, a mirror image of anger directed at corporate greed, systemic injustice, and right-wing conspiracies. This wasn't just about different opinions, it was about two entirely different information ecosystems feeding them constantly.
Polar opposites, algorithmically reinforced.
Precisely. This year at a family barbecue, what should have been a joyful gathering erupted into a heated argument. But it wasn't over a specific policy or a nuanced debate. It was over a shared, visceral disgust for the other's worldview. They weren't discussing ideas, they were shouting memes and headlines at each other, almost like performing for an invisible audience. They could no longer find common ground, no point of genuine connection, because their algorithms had, quite literally, terraformed their minds into hostile, alien landscapes.
That's a stark image. Terraformed minds.
When I hear stories like this, my first instinct isn't to judge who is right or wrong politically. My focus is squarely on the tragedy of the mechanism itself. It's a textbook case of what happens when emotionally charged media, optimized solely for clicks and engagement, systematically erodes our ability to reason together, to simply talk to each other. These platforms have discovered that anger, outrage, and tribalism are incredibly powerful engagement tools. The result is a society where genuine dialogue becomes nearly impossible, where we are increasingly susceptible to propaganda because we've lost the fundamental habit of questioning narratives that simply confirm our existing emotional biases. The family barbecue in this scenario becomes a heartbreaking microcosm of a nation, where we're losing the ability to see the human being behind the political label.
It scales up from the individual to the collective very quickly.
It really does. Mark and David's story truly underscores a core, unsettling idea. Our pervasive convenience culture, while making countless aspects of our lives easier and more efficient, might be quietly eroding our fundamental human abilities, from our capacity for complex problem solving to our very ability to regulate our emotions in a constructive way.
Indeed, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this throat punch of convenience culture, as one piece of research vividly calls it, is a significant, often overlooked factor in how we process information and engage with challenges. It's not just about social media in isolation, but a broader societal trend that is profoundly shaping our cognitive landscape and emotional resilience.
Throat punch of convenience culture. Wow, okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, this pervasive convenience culture has profound implications for what I call the inconvenience of curiosity and its direct impact on our problem-solving abilities. Think about how our modern lives are meticulously designed for instant gratification, from instant noodles that cook in minutes to one-day deliveries that bring almost anything to our doorstep. This societal shift has cultivated an inability to tolerate even a slight inconvenience of waiting. You see it in the rage that bubbles up when a YouTube video needs to buffer for a few seconds.
It's true. Even a tiny delay feels like an affront. So what does that impatience do to something as inherently slow and, frankly, inconvenient as curiosity?
It creates a fundamental conflict. Curiosity, by its very nature, comes with inconvenience. It requires us to accept periods of not having satisfactory answers, to be comfortable with ambiguity. It demands that we do the emotional labor and the mental load of exploring different perspectives, of chasing down rabbit holes, and perhaps most importantly, to sit in the discomfort of disagreements without immediately shutting down or getting defensive. This convenience culture directly reduces our capacity to bear that weight, contributing to phenomena like cancel culture, where disagreements are met with immediate dismissal, often with overwhelming public pressure, rather than thoughtful inquiry or reasoned debate. We're losing the ability to debate with maturity, to truly listen to understand, often resorting to aggressive you versus me dynamics instead of seeking common ground or even just respectful understanding.
So we're becoming less tolerant of the messiness of thinking and disagreeing.
In a way, yes. And this also critically impacts our cognitive control and working memory. Excessive exposure to rapid, fragmented content, which is a hallmark of convenience-driven digital consumption, relentlessly overstimulates our cognitive processes. This constant bombardment leads to a measurable decrease in our working memory capacity, that mental notepad where we hold information while we're actively using it, and significantly impairs our cognitive control, which is our brain's sophisticated ability to manage thoughts and behaviors to accomplish a specific goal. Studies show that habitual social media use, characterized by constant task switching, actively deactivates our ability to prioritize tasks and sustain attention, making it incredibly harder to focus on demanding tasks like studying for an exam or tackling a complex project at work.
So it's not just that we feel distracted, it's that our brains are literally being trained not to focus deeply. And the AI connection here you mentioned earlier about cognitive debt, how does that tie into this weakening of our cognitive muscles?
Precisely. The reliance on AI for quick answers, as we discussed earlier, further contributes to this by allowing students, and really all of us, to bypass the rigorous processes of analysis, interpretation, and articulation. If an AI can generate a summary or an answer in seconds, why spend hours grappling with the text yourself? This can lead to an intellectually passive generation, where people lose confidence in their independent thinking and writing abilities because they've outsourced that crucial cognitive workout. It's a subtle shift, but its cumulative effect is profound. Less deep engagement, less critical analysis, and less active memory formation.
Okay, so our thinking gets shallower. What about how we feel? Does this constant digital barrage affect our emotions?
Absolutely. Our emotional regulation and overall mental well-being are significantly affected. The overconsumption of digital media, which is often intensely emotionally charged and algorithmically curated, contributes to a widespread state of collective burnout. We are quite literally bombarded with too much information, much of it packaged into these irresistible bite-sized pieces that give us a fleeting delusion of being intellectually nourished without any real substance. This constant emotional stimulation, which prioritizes outrage, fear, or fleeting joy, can seriously impair our rational thinking and, quite frankly, make us mentally lazy. When minds are worn out by this constant emotional roller coaster, they lose their grip on objectivity, seeing countering ideologies or different viewpoints as direct attacks rather than simply different perspectives to be considered. This makes us significantly more susceptible to radicalization and propagandist narratives because we're too exhausted to critically evaluate them.
That makes a scary amount of sense. Burned out brains are easier to manipulate?
Research consistently highlights that heavy social media users report higher feelings of overstimulation, distraction, and pervasive mental fatigue. This directly links to increased cognitive load, elevated anxiety levels, and even symptoms of depression. The constant pursuit of social validation through likes and shares can lead to significant emotional dysregulation, with users experiencing intense emotional highs and lows, becoming overly reliant on external validation for their self-esteem and sense of worth.
And critical thinking, does that take a hit too?
It does. This trend also critically contributes to the erosion of critical thinking and logic. In what we call a postmodern and digital age, traditional absolute truths are increasingly viewed as relative. While relativism certainly has its merits in encouraging diverse perspectives, when it's unbalanced, it leads to personal opinions outweighing logic and critical thinking, fostering emotional reasoning above all else. Modern media, especially social media, exacerbates this by bombarding us with an endless stream of relative ideas and opinions, leading to a diminished need or even desire to discern truth from falsehood. Algorithms, which are designed to appeal to emotions over logic, actively exploit these psychological vulnerabilities. The more emotionally charged we become, the less inclined we are to pause, reflect, and critically analyze the content presented to us. We begin to judge concepts based on their popularity or how trendy they seem, rather than their actual merit, avoiding what's truly the deeper, harder task of critically examining whether something is actually right or wrong.
So popularity trumps accuracy. What does this mean for society as a whole?
Looking at the broader societal implications, the inability to tolerate inconvenience and the erosion of curiosity can severely hinder our capacity for compassionate engagement and community building. Instead of pausing to inquire why someone holds a different view, the immediate reflex often becomes outright dismissal or aggressive confrontation. This makes us, as a society, profoundly more vulnerable to manipulation and propaganda, as this pervasive collective burnout becomes currency for those who seek to push extreme narratives and divide us. The blending of facts and opinions, influenced by deep-seated cognitive biases, the fragmented nature of our information sources, a widespread lack of critical thinking education, and the increasing political polarization, collectively poses a very real, tangible security threat to the very fabric of our society.
Here's where it gets really interesting and perhaps a bit unsettling if you consider the big picture. Let's try to imagine a young professional in Tokyo, maybe named Kenta. He lives a life of seamless convenience. His smart home wakes him up with gentle light. His pre-portioned gourmet meal kit is delivered directly to his door for dinner. And if his faucet even dares to leak, an app instantly finds a vetted plumber who arrives in minutes. He's productive, efficient, and has optimized virtually every part of his day. His life is a testament to the power of modern convenience.
The optimized life.
Totally. One weekend, Kenta decides to visit his grandfather in the quiet countryside. A typhoon unexpectedly hits, the power goes out across the region, and the cell towers, those invisible pillars of his digital life, fail completely. Suddenly, all his apps are useless. The intricate digital infrastructure that managed every facet of his life is simply gone. His grandfather, however, calmly lights an oil lamp, finds the hand-crank radio from a dusty cupboard, and starts securing the storm shutters with tools Kenta has literally never seen before. For 2 days, Kenta feels a profound, almost paralyzing sense of uselessness. He doesn't know how to cook without an electric stove, how to pass the time without a screen, or how to solve the simple physical problems that arise around the old house. He's not unintelligent by any measure. He's highly educated and successful. But his problem-solving muscles, so to speak, have atrophied from sheer disuse.
He's lost his analog skills.
Exactly. Kenta's story, for me, is a powerful, almost allegorical reflection of the societal impact of our convenience culture. We've outsourced so many basic life skills, so many fundamental aspects of dealing with friction to technology that we risk losing a fundamental part of our human resilience, our self-reliance, the capacity for sustained intellectual inquiry, the deep patience required to work through a problem without an instant answer, is diminished when every single friction point in life is smoothed over by an app or digital assistant. It's a profound paradox. In our relentless quest to make life easier, we may ironically be making ourselves less capable of handling the inevitable complexities and uncertainties that will surely come our way when any system fails. We're gaining convenience, yes, but at what cost to our core competence?
It's a fascinating point. We optimize for the now, potentially sacrificing resilience for the what if.
Kenta's story, while seemingly about convenience, hints at a much deeper vulnerability that can be exploited by the very forces we see contributing to political polarization and the widespread dissemination of propaganda. If our problem-solving muscles atrophy, if our ability to grapple with discomfort diminishes, what happens to our inherent capacity to critically assess information, to question narratives, to discern truth from falsehood?
That's a crucial transition point. It brings us to the core question. How does the overconsumption of emotionally charged, algorithmically curated digital media lead to this alarming political polarization, actively erode objective reasoning, and ultimately increase our susceptibility to narratives that might not serve our best interests?
Okay, let's dive into that. How does it actually work?
The core of this issue lies deeply embedded in the mechanism of outrage and engagement. Social media algorithms, as we've discussed, are not designed to foster thoughtful dialogue or nuanced understanding. They are explicitly designed to appeal directly to our emotions rather than our logic. They ingeniously exploit our psychological insecurities and vulnerabilities because emotionally charged content, whether it's anger, outrage, or fleeting bursts of joy, consistently keeps users engaged for longer periods. The more emotionally stimulated we are, the less inclined we become to pause, to reflect, and to critically analyze the content being presented to us. The example you shared in the opening of our deep dive about a simple search for a recipe devolving into an outrage tunnel perfectly illustrates how these platforms skillfully push users into emotionally charged content, deliberately taking clips out of context to prove cynical points. That agitation, the physical sensation of tensed shoulders and a tight jaw, is a direct physiological manifestation of this algorithmic manipulation. It's a constant state of low-level fight or flight.
So the outrage isn't a bug, it's a feature for engagement.
In many ways, yes. This inevitably leads to a significant erosion of objective reasoning and critical thinking. Social media's relentless emphasis on quick consumption and immediate, often knee-jerk, responses actively discourages deeper analysis. This fosters decision-making based on incomplete or superficial information, a habit that becomes ingrained. This constant conditioning can severely weaken our critical thinking skills, not just in online contexts, but in our offline lives as well. The postmodern reality, where traditional absolute truths become increasingly relative, is profoundly amplified by the constant media bombardment. We become less inclined to sort true information from false, often judging concepts based on popularity, virality, or how trendy they seem, rather than their actual merit or factual basis. A Rand Corporation study, for instance, identified key drivers behind the public's alarming tendency to blur facts and opinions. These include deep-seated cognitive biases we all possess, our increasing reliance on social media for news, and a relentless 24/7 news cycle, a widespread lack of educational focus on developing robust critical thinking skills, and the pre-existing political and social polarization that these platforms then exploit.
So it's a perfect storm of our own biases meeting an environment designed to exploit them. How does that specifically translate into the political polarization we see around us, like with Mark and David?
It's the engine of it. These algorithms thrive on polarizing people and amplifying division. By constantly serving us content that meticulously aligns with our existing biases, what we already believe or want to believe, they create powerful echo chambers. Within these digital bubbles, users are highly unlikely to be exposed to alternative or opposing views, or, crucially, to critically evaluate the information they might be receiving. This self-selection of views, where people immerse themselves only in what confirms their beliefs, is a significant direct factor in deepening societal divides, turning what should be healthy disagreements into what one piece of analysis called violent you versus me knockout matches. The Mark and David story is a powerful, almost heartbreaking allegory for this. It shows how feeds, curated by clicks and algorithmic engagement, can literally terraform minds into hostile alien landscapes, where common ground and constructive dialogue become virtually impossible. The digital chasm becomes too wide to bridge.
And this makes us vulnerable, right? To bad actors, to propaganda.
And this brings us to a critical, dangerous vulnerability: our heightened susceptibility to propagandist narratives and misdisinformation. It's crucial to distinguish between these terms. Misinformation is simply false information that is spread unintentionally, often by accident or misunderstanding. Disinformation, however, is deliberately created and spread with a specific intent to cause harm, to deceive. Propaganda, meanwhile, has specific political connotations, often linked to information produced by governments or political groups to influence public opinion, though the lines between it, advertising, and publicity can be quite blurry in our modern media landscape.
Got it. Misinformation is accidental, disinformation is deliberate malice.
Broadly speaking, yes. The digital age, with widespread smartphone penetration and a relentless 24/7 news cycle, has vastly accelerated the spread of false information. Early research, going back to 2018, showed something remarkable. Humans, not just bots, were actually more likely to spread false stories. They were 70% more likely to be retweeted than true ones, simply because false news often contains novelty and emotional appeal. More recently, the breathtaking advances in artificial intelligence mean that sophisticated chatbots can mimic human behavior with chilling accuracy and generate original, persuasive, and dangerously convincing misinformation at an unprecedented scale and speed.
That's a terrifying thought. So it's not just about filtering out existing false information, but now we're facing an endless supply of newly generated false narratives. And who is really leveraging this? Who benefits?
Exactly. And the answer is complex. Extremist groups across the entire ideological spectrum are incredibly well-versed in using these tactics. For example, a 2021 study by New York University-based Cybersecurity for Democracy found that extreme right-wing groups benefit more from disinformation. But it's important to note there are also clear examples of extreme left-wing groups spreading disinformation and conspiracy theories, such as anti-Semitic narratives or outright falsehoods about international conflicts.
Oh.
Both sides weaponize these tools. It's not exclusive.
Okay, so it's across the board. How do conspiracy theories fit in?
Conspiracy theories further amplify disinformation and accelerate threats. QAnon, for instance, a sprawling conspiracy theory with U.S. origins, gained global reach through disinformation about a powerful global elite and even falsely linked seemingly unrelated technologies like 5G to public health crises like COVID-19. These narratives thrive in those echo chambers we discussed, relentlessly reinforcing existing beliefs and making them resistant to factual correction.
And how do these groups actually spread this stuff? Is it obvious?
Not always. Extremists employ both overt and covert tactics. Overt approaches happen on known extremist websites and forums like Stormfront and Rumble, explicitly targeting identified supporters who are already in the fold. The more covert, low-key approach is insidious. It focuses on mainstream social media platforms, traditional media, and even unexpected places like gaming sites. They utilize seemingly harmless memes, short videos, and various forms of deception to normalize radical ideas and gradually lure in vulnerable populations who might not even realize they are being targeted. The vast gaming ecosystem, with almost 3 billion users globally, is increasingly exploited for this very reason. Gamification, where mass shooters horrifyingly live-stream their attacks on popular gaming sites, visually styles violence as a video game simulation, encouraging engagement and making it easy to replay while associating competitive, almost scorekeeping elements with the violence itself. Radical groups like Daesh have even designed their propaganda with gaming aesthetics to amplify recruitment, making their message seem relatable to a younger, digitally native audience.
Wow. Gaming sites, too. And this online activity, it spills into the real world, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The real-world consequences of all this are stark and often tragic. The U.S. Capitol attack on January 6, 2021 is a direct, undeniable example of how mis- and disinformation amplified on online forums and social media reinforced dangerous conspiracy theories, such as the stolen election narrative, ultimately leading to large-scale group mobilization and violent action. Over 1,100 individuals have been arrested across nearly all 50 U.S. states for crimes related to this attack. Foreign influence, too, plays a role, with actors like Russia leveraging far-right social media platforms leading up to the 2020 U.S. election, as seen in documented operations specifically targeting users with content that presented minorities and liberals in a negative light, sowing discord and deepening existing rifts.
So what are the platforms doing? And governments? It seems like a huge challenge.
These developments present significant challenges for platforms and governance. Social media companies face immense challenges in moderating gray area content that spreads misdisinformation, a task often clashing directly with business models that inherently prioritize user engagement above all else. Despite efforts like fact-checking and labeling state-run media, loopholes frequently appear due to the sheer overwhelming volume of content and the sophisticated ability of extremist groups to work around terms of service. Governments and regulators also consistently struggle to keep pace with new platforms and emerging technologies like generative AI, with a palpable lack of international consensus on how best to regulate this rapidly evolving digital landscape.
Okay, so it feels a bit daunting. Is there anything we can actually do? How do we build resilience?
It's not hopeless. There are crucial mitigation strategies and ways to build resilience against these forces. This scenario underscores the critical, immediate need for increased digital and media literacy training for everyone. This training can help individuals evaluate online information more effectively and recognize phenomena like the illusory truth effect, that fascinating yet dangerous human tendency to believe information simply because we've been exposed to it repeatedly, regardless of whether it's actually true. It also calls for greater platform responsibility through structural changes, like what's attempted in frameworks such as the UK Online Safety Bill, and a fundamental shift towards ethical design that prioritizes user well-being over raw engagement metrics. Furthermore, the proactive dissemination of evidence-based narratives, strong community support networks, and clear, transparent public communication from authorities are absolutely essential to effectively counter false information and rebuild public trust in reliable sources.
So what does this all mean for us then? This deep dive has pulled back the curtain on the complex, often unseen interplay between our digital habits, the intricate design of the platforms we use every day, and the profound impacts they are having on our minds, and indeed on the very fabric of society. From the quiet, almost imperceptible erosion of curiosity to the loud, divisive clashes fueled by algorithmic outrage, it's abundantly clear we're all navigating a brand new and often challenging cognitive landscape. The stories of Elena, Mark and David and Kenta, while distinct in their specifics, paint a vivid and interconnected picture of a world where convenience can, ironically, lead to complacency, and where constant connection can paradoxically lead to deeper and more entrenched division.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that merely being online is no longer a neutral or passive activity. It's an active daily engagement with sophisticated systems meticulously designed to shape our attention, to manipulate our emotions, and even to subtly influence our capacity for independent thought. The fundamental choice, then, becomes whether we passively allow these systems to dictate our cognitive well-being and our societal direction, or if we intentionally and proactively reclaim our agency, both individually and collectively.
Making a conscious choice about how we engage.
Exactly. This suggests a powerful shift is needed.
Yeah.
What if we, as users, as designers, as policymakers, collectively shifted our focus from passive consumption to purposeful engagement, not just through individual choices, but by advocating for fundamental platform designs that prioritize genuine human well-being and collective understanding over raw engagement metrics? The remarkable neuroplasticity of our brains tells us that change is always possible, but it requires conscious, sustained effort from all sides.
This journey we've taken today, exploring the subtle and not so subtle ways social media and AI influence our minds, leaves us with a compelling thought. Perhaps the true measure of technological progress isn't just how much information it gives us or how easy it makes our lives. Perhaps the real benchmark should be how well it preserves and even cultivates our intrinsic human capacity for deep thought, for critical questioning, and for genuine empathy. It's a powerful idea to consider.